Namaste, Jai Bharat. My Prime Minister has recently made a reference to something called as Dimagi Naxal. The expression is very serious and is pregnant with meaning. These things are he just simply put it Dimagi Naxal. But then that's much more deeper than what appears at the surface level. Look at the whole tradition of knowledge in the Europe. See, the European knowledge tradition is distinct. At the same time, much different from Bharatiya knowledge tradition. And the distinction between Bharatiya knowledge tradition and European knowledge tradition is a conspicuous and different. There are problems, most of the problems arises in Bharat when someone either willingly or inadvertently gets influenced or adopts European knowledge tradition chiefly for the tendency to copy, with the belief that somewhere the in thing, most discussed, talked thing, and therefore superior. The in thing most discussed and talked is true, because this is the kind of things available to Europe, and they talk about it, they discuss about it. Now, when you look at those things, if you are not well rooted in your own knowledge tradition, then you will have this tendency to think that these are the real in things and therefore superior. So there are the vast majority of people whom I have seen belongs to this category. Something is said abroad is acceptable to him without questioning. At the same time, they accuse what is of Bharat as obsolete and is suffering from obsolescence. This tendency we have seen, it's there in most of the academia. I have seen students so influenced and so much accepting thinkers from the West. For someone, Foucault is everything. For someone else, Bourdieu is wonderful, and his theories of social capital, cultural capital, etc. are very convincing to these people. And by that, since they don't stand rooted in their own knowledge tradition, they get estranged. And when such people get estranged, they are easily influenced by thoughts from without, and they continue living like that. And in personal life, in most cases, as I know directly, their personal life suffers because we in Bharatiya knowledge tradition, when we talk about Bharatiya Sanskriti, our base unit of the Sanskriti is Kutumba, family, and most of those people are influenced by the iconoclastic and destructive thought of not giving importance to Kutumba, that's family. See, it's very simple, and I don't think it will take much time to just touch the surface. We know that most of the people think themselves that European tradition is rooted in Greek thoughts, Greek philosophy. Then comes the medieval dark period, and during the medieval dark period it was papacy, that's Christianity, barring the Roman domination for quite some time, but which did not last. Even initially the Romans were influenced by the Greek Hellenism. They created their own some kind of religion. They named the change, and they changed the names of deities. But then comes Christianity, and the whole thing gets subsumed under Christianity. Hellenism ceases to exist. Religio Romana goes far-flung. And then, during that period, which European historians themselves narrate as a dark period, there was no new venture to knowing, hence dark period. Everything was religion. After that only the tendency of positivism sets in. Descartes is there in between. The positive philosophy, people were trying to come out with positive philosophy. When they say there is something as positive philosophy, others come and people. What is employed as negative is religion. There is papacy explicitly. So for a period, most of the progressive people were atheists because they were under the influence of papacy, at least at that period. Then comes, that time everything science has to be rational, and rational means it's positive. All such mixed thoughts floated in Europe. Then of course there is breaks. If you look at the European knowledge tradition, there is always breaks from one to another, another to another. Like not even like Hegel's dialectics, thesis to antithesis to synthesis. It's a kind of continuation, not a real break. But in European knowledge tradition, you have breaks. From one knowledge tradition, they break into another with hardly anything as continuation. And further total drastic changes. That's how they supported the notion of revolution, drastic and total and complete change, etc. So with that then comes modernity and then postmodernism with all kinds of thinking. So they continuously had this iconoclastic tendency of breaking from the past. See, at one age you are influenced by breaks of the past, rebelling against what is existing, because you have some kind of suffocation under this rebelling oppression. So they find breaks, people find breaks. That's what you see in the so-called new gen and the Gen Z, what you call. But in the context of Bharat, the Gen Z who are projected as new gen are not the real Gen Zs in Bharat. The Gen Zs are those Gen Zs who are doing startups and making things and impossible contribution they make. I count them as the Gen Zs of Bharat, the youngsters, and who are the promises of tomorrow, not these negative characters who are under the influence of vastly postmodernistic thought. All kinds of theoreticians come and speak things and they accept it. See, the very spirit of this both modernity, postmodernism, etc., is to question and accept. But I've seen postmodernists accepting and not questioning. So that itself is a contradiction, a self-contradiction, very serious kind of contradiction. So putting all these things together, they refuse nationhood, they refuse sanskara, culture, they refuse families, they refuse all kinds of established existing things. So they say that we are against establishment. Such attitude, which I personally see as negativism, negative thinking, and they say that the conformism I am against. Don't be involved in conformism. Who is asking you to involve in conformism? But go through, when you go into the knowledge stage, go through the 3 stages of Bharati knowledge: Shravana, Manana, and then Nidhyasana. You hear, then understand it, and then think about it. We call it as meditation, Nidhyasana, but think about it. Or deeply reflect upon it before getting convinced. But these stages are never followed in the European tradition. They're influenced mostly because of the immaturity of the listeners. And there are, I've seen there are some professors which are with the European attitude who celebrate the ignorance of people sitting in front. I'm sorry to say that, but this really was a in my experience. I may stand corrected. So, putting all these things together goes against a nation concept. You see, Lenin, I don't know how you can put into use today, was once said that nation is necessarily, nationhood, etc., is necessarily an instrument of oppression in the hands of the bourgeoisie. I understand him as making the statement in a context bound situation, but the moment you make it context free, that people adopt. And when my Prime Minister talks about Dimagi Naxal, all these things are put in, and it would take 2 days of continuous lecture to talk about this area. Very interesting, but at the end of it, disappointing. Long back, when I was teaching in a different university, a youngster came to me, and that particular situation in that university was altogether postmodern. That was a department of interdisciplinary. All the subjects are there, and they were talking about Kafka many times and Foucault, Habermas, and all those, the trending thinkers. And then one of my students, one student who came to do PhD with me, he was telling me, sir, what are these people talking? I just said, look, you just go and interact with them and ask them what is it, you try to learn it and read those books, and then we'll discuss. After a month or so, with this interaction, everything, he came to me, was putting his head this way, that way. I asked him, what, could you find out something? Then he says, sir, these people are raving mad, Then I asked, okay, you are not interested to learn more. I read these books which they said I've been reading, but then did not convince me. Then I said, then there's no point in discussing. If you yourself find it not very convincing, there's no point. I need not to correct you. You are already into the right path. And that boy did well and has joined the civil services. He is in the administrative service, doing well. So this is a whole stage settings of his one word expression, Dimagi Naxal. My God, how rich is a term that he has coined. And politically and practically, all those who got bugged by this word came out in no time, which makes people identify who does he mean by calling Dimagi Naxal. Anyway, that had been exceptionally brilliant as I look at it. We shall meet. Namaste. Jai Bharat. Jai Shri Ram.